Oh, yeah. Welcome, everyone, to the April meeting of the Warren County Board of Supervisors. Please rise while Supervisor Diamond leads us in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk will read the roll.
Mr. Leggett?
Here.
Mr. Diamond?
Here.
Mr. McDevitt?
Here.
Ms. Bramer? Here. Mr. Loeb?
Here.
Mr. Driscoll?
Here.
Mrs. Frazier? Here. Mr. Simpson?
Here.
Ms. Hogan? Present. Mr. Dickinson?
Here.
Mr. Merlino?
Here.
Mr. Stroud?
Here.
Mr. Wild?
Here.
Mr. Beatty?
Here.
Mr. McGowan?
Here.
Mr. Sokol?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Ms. Hyde? Here. Mr. Garrity?
Here.
Chairman Conover?
Here. You should all receive the minutes of our March 15th meeting. Chair will entertain a motion regarding Ms. Bramer on the motion to approve, Mr. Leggett on the second. Any discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor of approving the minutes of March 15 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Now we will move right into presentation of employee of the month.
I'm very proud to announce that Samantha Hogan from my office has been chosen for Employee of the Month for April. She's worked for my office since September of 2013. Working at the reception desk, Sam fields the majority of the calls that come into the clerk of the board's office and is the friendly face most encounter when visiting second floor offices in general. She's always professional, pleasant, and ready to assist with whatever request might come her way. She's the perfect example of what a public servant should be. As part of her regular workload, Sam keeps the bills paid and the various budgets managed by the clerk of the board in check, handling all of the accounting work required for this office. She works hard to reduce expenses and many times has been successful in returning a savings at the close of the year. Sam also coordinates all of our department heads and various agencies to develop the monthly committee meeting schedule, which is a feat in itself. She assists with records information and FOIL requests and has undertaken a large project of scanning old resolutions and correspondence which were not previously available in digital format, making them much easier to find and eliminating the need for so many trips to storage for archived documents. Sam is an excellent employee, always accepting and accomplishing any project requested of her, in addition to the myriad of tasks she has already assigned. She truly is our jack of all trades, and I'm very appreciative of her hard work and dedication to this office.
If I could, I'd like to add that I've been so impressed with our front office staff since I started here. Every single one of them, they're really a model team. They're the backbone not only of my office, but also the Board of Supervisors. And their work is largely behind the scenes, so it's easy not to realize the volume of what they do and how critical it is to making this government function, but it truly is. And Sam is a key component to this team. She's always ready to help, and she brings a smile to all of our faces, which is necessary on some days. So we'd like to bring Sam up and congratulate her. Thank you.
That's pretty good. Report of the chairman. It's a very, very busy month. Committee meetings on March 18, environmental concerns, real property, public safety, county facilities. Equally on March 19th, health, human resources, support services, public works. On March 25, economic growth and development, LDC. On April 5, support services, personnel, higher education. On April 8th, I had the privilege of attending and speaking at the Crime Victims' Rights Breakfast. There was a number of other supervisors there as well. was held in the Northwest Bay Conference Center. It was very well attended, and it was a very moving experience, I have to tell you. On April 10, I attended the Adirondack Glens Falls Transportation Council meeting at Crandall Library. On April 11th, I had the pleasure of attending an evening meeting in Chester on the Wilderness Trail. It was well attended and a very informative meeting, and a very interesting plan being advanced. On April 16th, I attended the EMS meeting here at the Conference Center. On April 17th, I, along with John Strow, I kind of shoehorned my way into a tour of Center's Health Facility. Thank you, John, for allowing me to piggyback on your tour. And on April 18th, I attended Inter-County. We did a tour of Cool Center, lunch at Davidson's. There were a number of issues that were discussed, but of particular interest was the internet sales tax revenue vis-a-vis AIM reimbursement of the towns. There's considerable discussion on that. My takeaway from that was that the counties are now responsible for reimbursing the towns for AIM. And that brings us to today. Reports of committee chairman, Supervisor Diamond.
No report.
Supervisor McDivitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just 4 or 5 items here. The early part of the month, I attended actually an Eagle Scout presentation. I'm a member of the Marine Corps League, and I know I've attended one up in Warrensburg a couple of years ago with Supervisor Garrity and Supervisor Strow, and very impressive in a very wholesome program. Attended an event on the evening of April 8th regarding Eastfield, and looking for a way to find a funding mechanism, and working with Jeff Flatt on that issue. Hopefully the joint city members can work together on that effort. On the 9th, attended a financing seminar which was sponsored by Assemblyperson Stefanik and Doug Beatty, and I think Claudia, and I think some other supervisors were at that. Met with Ed and Jen on Wednesday regarding a pending LDC loan, and communicated with Supervisor Leggett on that issue. Coming up on the 29th of this month at our economic development meeting, Lehigh Cement will be coming in with their president, their environmental engineer, and John Brodt from Behan Communications to give us an update on what the status of their pending permit is indeed. So we look forward to that, and it would be, I think, an informative session for all concerned to get a balance between an industry that has been here for many, many years, employs a significant amount of people, competes in a global environment, and is looking for a way to internally, in a clean, environmentally sensitive way, to reduce manufacturing costs. So I think it'll be an interesting session to see where they're coming from.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you, Chairman. The Environmental Concerns and Real Property Tax Services Committee met on March 18th, and we do have a couple of resolutions in your packet. The first one is on the bid for constructive copy to print maps. There are 2 others related to a consent order that we were going to enter into with DEC, but our Director of Real Property has been in touch with a couple of people at the state, and we're trying to come up with a better agreement for the county. So at the appropriate time, I'm going to ask to table these 2 resolutions so we can take a little bit more time to consider whether or not there's something else out there that would be better for us to adopt rather than this consent order, which was pretty good for us. DEC was going to do the cleanup, and we were only on the hook for $10,000. but we're hoping that we can get something a little bit more firm from DEC as to the entire cleanup and then releasing us from future liability, which would be great. Monday, Earth Day, the committee is meeting again, and we will be going over the Clean Energy Communities program. I'm hoping that the county can take the 4 high-impact action items that are needed in order to get us certification. And once we do that, that will open up some funding opportunities, not only for the county, but also for our private entities. And one of them is the Energize New York program, which is an opportunity to allow private entities to get some financing for energy upgrades. So you just need some municipal backing. So we're hoping that we can look at that and then run that through your committee to help let the public know about it so that they can take advantage of that opportunity. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Loeb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Support Services Committee actually met twice last month. Resolutions coming out of that committee are in the packet, and they're self-explanatory. I'll point out in Resolution number 165 from the Purchasing Department, authorizing Warren County to participate in the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance. The question was asked, and Julie pointed out that this is a way, a great opportunity for the county to save money, but the towns need to apply individually. So I'm just saying that to remind all the towns to apply. If any dollar you can save, you can save. And check with Julie to see if you have any questions how to do that. And there's no resolutions from the Board of Elections, but we had a lengthy presentation from the Board of Elections. They are going to have, they have already started a busy year with the new election laws and new hardware and software that we're going to be purchasing over the next couple of years. So I look forward to hearing more from them, and we certainly will. At our next meeting, part of our agenda is to have the coalition, which is our health department or office for the aging, and various folks around county who have been working with the nursing homes. I've asked them to come to our committee to give us a report. And this is in light also, it's timely because you probably saw in the Post-Star, our controller's office did an audit of the state health departments and how they handle our food industry, food serving industry in this state, and it was not a very complimentary report. So that's just one section of the health department. I can't imagine that one section is not doing very well and the other section is doing well. The other section I'm referring to is the part that's in charge of our nursing homes. And it turns out that Ryan sent out an email that at the end of the budget for this year, the state has asked the health department to do its own audit. I don't know how effective that will be, but to do its own audit of the way they run their operation. Of course, all with the idea of taking care of the folks who are very important to all of us. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no report, but I would respectfully request privilege of the floor to invite some friends from the Friends of the Glens Falls Farmers Market to share some information with the board.
Sure, without objection. Absolutely. Welcome. You can step to the podium.
Good morning. I'm going to read this so I don't take too much of your time. I'm an evangelical on the farmers market. I'm David Porter from the Glens Falls Market Friends. I want to thank Ben for inviting us here today to briefly introduce our new organization. The Glens Falls Farmers Market is truly a gem in Warren County. For over 42 years, it's brought fresh and local products to the area by the people who produce it. It stands almost with very few other markets as being a producers-only market. It's grown into a year-round market and a community showpiece. My involvement includes being a farmer and a vendor at the market from 2004 through 2016. There I grew to appreciate the value of the market and the strong community of people who supported it. I also served for 10 years on the market board and often saw market and community needs and opportunities that were just beyond the reach of the already overcommitted vendors and farmers. When we sold our farm, we moved to Glens Falls because of the image of the city's potential I saw weekly at that market. We linked up with other market supporters in 2018, and we formed a 501c3 Friends of the Farmers Market. We view food and how it's raised and distributed as central to the health, family, community, and the environment. You tug on one of those things and find it's all connected. The Market Friends wants to help the farmers and grow the community. We currently have a table at the market where we're gathering customer information and sharing market information with the community. We're setting up a market ambassador program to help new customers adapt to the rather different shopping experience at the farmers market than a traditional grocery store. And we're working to help the vendors accommodate those customers' needs. We're supporting and helping plan special events to enhance market experience, increase the connection between existing community groups and the farmers market and the people who come to the market. There's a lot of great community groups, but we're all out there like this, and the more we can work together, the stronger we can get. We see the market as a community corner or town square where citizens meet and greet each other, share the news, and experience that sense of belonging to a vibrant, caring community. We're systematically encouraging all local officials to come join the friends at the market at our table and just meet the customers and share with the people what it is you're doing in rooms like this and at your committees. There's a lot of work that goes on, but it doesn't all get covered in the newspaper, and people don't always read the newspaper, enhancing that communication. The Market Friends were established to grow and improve the market experience, to attract and maintain strong vendors and customers, to make the transition to the South Street Market achieve its highest potential. As you can see, we're a new, enthusiastic organization, overflowing with ideas and visions for the future. What we accomplish will be limited only by how fast we can build a base of volunteers and by the level of financial support we're beginning to develop. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. And Ben, thank you for extending the invitation. Supervisor Loeb.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Porter, I have a question. Since you're here, this is fantastic.
I'm here.
The farmers market is in the 4th Ward in Glens Falls. That's I'm the supervisor from the 4th Ward.
Right.
4 blocks from my house, and I've enjoyed the farmers market 99.99% every time I go. The part that I don't enjoy, and I've been lobbying for this, but since you're a live person and captured audience right now, I don't know if you've ever been to the farmers market in Ithaca. It's huge, and it's as enjoyable as ours could be. The one difference is, it's bigger, of course.
It's bigger.
You can go there for breakfast and lunch, but the one difference is you cannot get a cup of coffee at our farmers market. You can get a free sample, 3 ounces. Okay, free sample is fine, but make it a shopping experience, just as all the supermarkets have found. Supermarkets give out free coffee, and you buy more, and you could spend more relaxing time going around the store. If we could have a vendor sell cups of coffee, they could enjoy all the pastries that are sold. It would just make it a so much better experience. Thank you.
Yes. It's one of the things we're looking at doing. But for a vendor to do it, it needs separate licensing. But the Friends may be able to have that licensing. And as our financing rolls in, one of the things I want to do is make sure we've got coffee at the table that invites you over to the community corner.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. Anything more, Ben?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Supervisor Frazier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Health, Human, and Social Services met on March the 19th. We heard from Social Services and Public Health, and as a result of that, we have 7 resolutions, 151 through 157. 151 just authorizing an agreement for a dietitian. 152 is authorizing a payment to the New York State Department of Health for violations of Countryside. 153, authorizing a license agreement with CARES New York to provide access to their homeless management information system. 154, appointing a member to the Warren County Youth Board. 155, authorizing submission of an application to the Adirondack Health Institute to supply WIC with fresh produce. And 157, an agreement to provide a speech therapist. And last but not least, 157, which amends resolution number 122 of 2019, which amended an agreement with Zermed for the purpose of verifying insurances before billing to expedite the claims without denials. And yesterday I attended the Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning Board, and really been impressed to see how much they've accomplished in the past year to kind of turn the whole thing around. So that was very interesting. And that's it, but I would appreciate your support on those resolutions.
Thank you, Edna. Supervisor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On March 19th, DPW met, and out of that meeting, we have 5 resolutions. The first 3, 158 through 160, are authorizing 158 is a culvert replacement on Finkel Brook. 159 is also a culvert replacement in the town of Lake Luzerne. 160 is a transportation project, culvert replacement in the town of Johnsburg on 13th Lake Road. 161 is authorizing our 2019 road project schedule. And 162 is authorizing an agreement for our auto body repair services with Warrensburg Collision Center. Another thing we discussed was the infrastructure inventory program that the chairman had came up with the idea and has stated the county and the implementation part of it. Everybody's received that program, and we're looking forward to seeing what everybody's infrastructure needs are so that we can really get an idea, get an assessment of what the county, where we are in Warren County. The due date for the railroad RFPs that were out was yesterday, and from what I'm told, I have not talked to Julie, but I did talk to Supervisor Taz, and there are 4 respondents, which I'm going to be talking to the administrator and DPW Vice Chair about and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This month I had the extreme pleasure of once again accompanying a group of Warren County kids out to the state fairgrounds for a STAR retreat, which is through the CCE. I'm, as always, so proud of those kids. We have the best kids here. I might be a little biased, but we have the best kids, and the future leaders are really being brought up right through the programs at the CCE. Save the date. Saturday, August 24th is the benefit golf tournament for the Cornell Cooperative Extension. It'll be at Cronin's again this year. It's always an amazingly good time, and the weather always cooperates. The Cornell Cooperative Extension is proud to present 4 classes of game of logging, which is required for people who are seeking logging insurance. It's a very popular program that they put on. And finally, the Volunteer Income Tax Assistant Program was a huge success this year, with 664 tax returns being prepared by volunteers for people under $54,000 in income around the county. That brought back over $909,000 in refunds. That's a 43% increase in tax returns that were prepared this year over last year. And Dr. Seeley has an award that he'd like to tell us about.
Sure. Without objection, Dr. Seeley.
I have a letter here from the Department of Treasury, Internal Revenue Service. Have I got your attention? Actually, I have a certificate, a Community Service Leadership Certificate, in appreciation of the Warren County Municipal Center, in recognition and appreciation of the outstanding effort, dedication, and personal contributions in building stronger communities throughout this great nation. So I'd like to present this to the County Administrator, and with many thanks.
Thank you.
Very well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Supervisor Dickinson.
I've had an extremely busy month, and I have no report. Spent all the money.
Supervisor Merlino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Tourism did not meet yet this month, and just a quick rundown, we're doing our spring break campaign. Most of it is underway, and it's close to home. We have a video on TV around the area about the indoor fun house and the factory outlet shopping. I've seen it a couple of times, so it's out there pretty good. We're also working on the whitewater derby and whitewater rafting and spring hiking. And the summer campaign on TV will start May 1st. Thank you.
How's that, Gene? Thank you. Okay, Supervisor Strauss.
Yes, thank you. No committee report, but a few event reports. I attended Maury Thompson's Charles Evans Hughes presentation, which is involving a film that is under production. Part of it has already been created on our local hero. And the film will continue in parts to become something I think of a great and glorious dedication to Charles Evans Hughes. So I learned of the event through an email blast. The email blast was factual and comprehensive, a strong contrast to another email blast you may have been recently exposed to. So I would like to give credit to Maury Thompson and all those involved in producing this Charles Evans Hughes event. I think it's going to be great for the greater community. I also attended an event at Lake George's Steel Pier with Mayor Blaze and Supervisor Dickerson and Senator Little and others. And we had a very pleasant sit-down meeting with Senator Chuck Schumer. And the topic, for the most part, was Lake George, specifically the need to fund the rebuilding of Lake George's wastewater treatment facility. So I think that's important to all of us, and once funded properly, without the entire burden being on the town and village of Lake George, we'll be able to see enhanced water quality being returned to our lake, which is our golden goose, our economic engine. And everyone here should be supporting this effort. Chuck Schumer's words sounded very promising. Tomorrow, I'm surprised Supervisor Bramer didn't bring it up. It's going to be Earth Day at the Library Park at noon. Also, this is Bike Month. I know we've had several dedications for declaring it this month or that month, but it's also Bike Month. And St. Mary's held an annual gala on March 23rd honoring Ed Bartholomew at the Queensbury Hotel. And I can think of few people more deserving because he has done so much to enhance our greater community than Ed Bartholomew. Also, that very same day, went to Glens Falls basketball game, the Federation champs, and we also had a mass for Ron Montesi that day, and he was a former county supervisor and a very great person, and I think we all agree on that. April 4th, I went to a Christian Businessmen's Connection where Michael Biddle was the speaker. He's the ARCC's leader currently, and he's doing a very good job at that, and he gave a very good speech. And then along with Chairman Conover, I got a very pleasant tour of the Warren Center. So it was a good eye-opener, and that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Wild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to talk about a piece of paper or sets of paper that's on your desk this morning. It's a review that I've done about occupancy tax. I don't want to hijack this meeting, but my intention was to bring this to the supervisors on the board just to create a discussion. And again, not today, but I have been one that's always asked a lot of questions, and occupancy tax has been one that's got my attention. We have just a few things. I'm not going to go through the report at all, but when I look at the fact that Warren County has received over $53 million in occupancy tax revenue since its inception in 2004, you'd like to see some kind of metric that is able to help us understand what we've done with that money and what the successes have and what some of the failures have been. I've heard that people have said that the occupancy tax is increasing. It's true. There's some charts there that will show that. There's talk about sales tax and how it's a great measure. There's charts that show that also. My concern is that some of the revenues that we've received, specifically in sales tax, have actually paralleled the general economy and not shown a jump in Warren County over others. So again, it's not my intent to hijack the agenda of this meeting today, but I would like to have some opportunity to have the board members review this, look at it, give me their comments back. And I'm sure there's things I missed, and I just would appreciate the feedback back because I think it's really important for the county for us to understand how to best apply that money. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Wild. Supervisor Beatty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. County Facilities met on the 19th. There's two resolutions in your packet, 143, 144. One's just authorizing a grant from the FAA to for the final design and building services for the construction of the new snow removal equipment building at Floyd. We have a 5% match on that, which would be about $7,500. The other one's 144, a bid and authorizing agreement with the emergency power system to provide generator maintenance at various county facilities in connection with Warren County DPW. Those are the only two on the agenda today. I would like to take just a couple minutes to read something that I prepared. It's been bothering me, the state budget this year, and I'm going to if you'll indulge me for just about 2 minutes. These are my thoughts and my thoughts only, but I'm very concerned about our neighbors here in the North Country. We're all New York State residents. We're all proud to live in this beautiful state with such outstanding neighbors. And we're also all especially proud to be from upstate New York. We pride ourselves on our independence, on our helping those in need, and using our common sense to prosper. But I'm deeply concerned about the current status of this state budget and the direction this state has taken us all in. The budget hashed out in the wee hours of the night by 3 people in a room, as always, has been an insult to New York State residents, as that's the process. And this year it seems to exceed any lick of common sense. My comments aren't political. I don't care what party's leading the state. It matters little to me. But what it does matter to me is the following information. The state recently passed what has become very disturbing to us in some residents and the North Country. And I'd like to outline the situation that we are in and the plight we're in as New York State residents. Number one, we're the highest tax state in the country, bar none. We have the most regulations in the country, bar none. The CEOs of America rate New York State as the worst state to own a business or start up a business. And if anybody's ever been in business knows that the number one business killer is over-regulations, and especially to small businesses, because they don't have the resources to keep up with all the regulations. I know that personally. I was part owner of Sunnyside, and I remember that our person we brought in to be our finance man, who's an expert, he says to me, he's from Massachusetts, he says to me the very first day, how the hell can anybody make any money in New York State with all these regulations? According to the New York Post, April 15th, their editorial, quote, yet another study confirms it. New York State has the worst economic prospects in the country. As for the 6th straight year, New York ranks dead last in economic outlook for the, and this was from the American Legislative Exchange Council annual report called Rich States and Poor States. We lead the nation in the most residents moving out of our beautiful state. I'm not moving out. I'm going to stay here and try to come up with solutions. But we lead the nation in most people moving out of the state. Over 1.3 million residents and your neighbors, and I've got plenty, have moved out of the state in the last 10 years. over 1.3 million. Think about that. We're going to lose 2 more congressional seats, by the way, soon. Why? People are moving out of our state. New York pays one of the highest utility bills in the country for their energy. Another important piece of a business puzzle when companies decide where to move a company to. We've had the most convicted politicians of a felony of any state. Now, that makes me sick. But think about that. We've got the most convicted politicians of a felony. And as we all know, Mr. Scalise, who's a Republican, Mr. Silver is a Democrat, were both convicted recently. They were 2 of the 3 people in a room. I can go on and on with these facts, but there are bases as to why this budget is hurting all of us. So it doesn't address the core problems in the state from this budget. Here's what it does do. It increases the state spending 4%. It increases the budget by billions of new spending and additional taxes. I will applaud the governor. He pushed hard to make sure the 2% cap was implemented. Thank you. Although a 2% cap isn't technically a 2% cap, and if anybody would like to discuss that, I'd be glad to. The governor just recently said there'll be a $1 to $2 billion revenue shortfall because of New York State residents moving out of the state. Yet we increase the spending by billions, and we make sure there's huge raises for every legislator and the governor. And by the way, when the governor gets a raise, many of you probably don't know, there's about 6,000 employees in state government that also get a raise because they're tied to his raises. So that will equate to hundreds and hundreds of thousands of additional dollars. I just thought you'd like to know that. This budget restores funding to municipalities and small towns. That's called the AIM, which all you probably are familiar with. But here's the problem. He was going to cut, that budget was going to cut 8% of the budget, $58,000. He said, no, we'll restore the money. You're going to get the same as last year. But as we all know, we're going to be getting additional sales tax from the internet because now the federal government passed that we can charge and get that. Well, the governors and the people in the state of in Albany have said, well, we'll just take that money, a good portion of it, and give it back to the towns. As Mr. Conover referred earlier, it's now the county that's going to supply the AIM money. And just a couple other, and thanks for indulging me. We're cutting $1 million in agricultural programs here in upstate New York, mostly the Cornell University and the Farm Viability Farming programs. We're going to spend $250,000 of our tax dollars, though, for a program to diversify the North Country. Now, somebody explain that to me. Last I knew, if you wanted to move to the North Country, you could. No one ever said you couldn't. We're eliminating bond for most criminal offenses. As Assemblywoman Carrie Warmer points out, the vast majority of felonies committed in Washington and Saratoga counties, which she represents, over 80% are committed by people who live outside of the county. So, what are the repercussions? The state will supply zero money to the counties to go and retrieve suspects who fail to show up for their trials. That could be a significant cost to her counties as well as Warren County and others. Again, that's a mandate shoved right down to us. Roads, bridges, basic infrastructure in the North Country, according to Ms. Warmer and her press release, are being overlooked. And this budget cuts funding for Pave New York. It does not include funding for roads damaged by extreme weather, and it does not address the capital needs of our county fairs. This budget does not even include funding for the children of our fallen soldiers, the Gold Star parents. Yet it includes $27 million of your taxpayer money and our neighbors' money for funding for the children of the illegal children of the state. I don't have a problem helping them out at times, but to not fund the Gold Star parents' kids, that's an insult. Especially since this area has some of the most, this district, the 21st district, has some of the most military families in the state. This budget's going to add additional taxes for New York, millions of dollars. It pushes more state mandates onto every county, and it's going to result in a budget deficit. So I guess, when's enough enough? Do we need another million, 2 million, 3 million more residents to move out of New York State? Because people vote, and they vote with their feet. As I mentioned above, New York State has the worst economic decay. There are additional items that are hurtful for the North Country, the entire state, and our neighbors. But as Democratic Assemblywoman Carrie Wormer clearly states, this year's budget was less balanced than any budget I have ever voted on since I took office. And there are a number of items she simply cannot support. This isn't partisan. This is bipartisan. This is Republican, Democrat, Independent. We're all New Yorkers. We're all upstate New Yorkers. We're all darn proud to live up here. I know I am each and every day. And I'm just not going to sit idly by any longer and just pretend like this budget helps us. It hurts us in the North Country. It's very clear. It's very cut and dry. And I'll be attending the legislative meeting, committee meeting, asking that we put together a resolution that expresses our feeling about this budget. And hopefully it'll be a bipartisan resolution. So, thank you very, oh, by the way, I asked Ms. Warner if she could attend. She couldn't. She already had meetings planned, but I thanked her for her time and input. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for indulging me with those comments.
You're welcome. Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After Doug Beatty, I will give him my time, so no report. Thank you.
We appreciate that. Thank you. Supervisor Sokol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Finance met on April 5th. Before you are resolutions 141, 142, and 168 through 179 for your consideration. Just like to touch base on resolution 168, and that did come out of support services, and Supervisor Loeb mentioned this in his report. This will be a capital reserve account dedicated solely for election equipment. This will now be a part of the budget process, and we will be receiving a detailed report given on the operation and the condition of this reserve, and this will be given to us on an annual basis. Just with the uncertainty of the state, it is prudent that we establish this reserve. And also, coming out of the DPW committee, which Supervisor Simpson did allude to, are resolutions 173 through 177. And these are all resolutions which establish capital projects or establish funds for our roads. The culverts obviously need help, and our roads need help. It's an awful winter up here, especially this last year. Sand and salt does a lot of damage, as well as the trucks. And over the years, we've just seen what it has done. And as of the last few years, we've been able to set aside, luckily, monies to address these issues as they pose a serious danger to all automotive drivers. So it was vetted pretty well in our finance committee, and Superintendent Pejos was there. There were some questions regarding the funding, but that is all I have. But I would like to have our treasurer come up. There was an article in the Post-Star recently that had us down in our sales tax numbers. And I talked to the treasurer about that, and I'd just like to have him clarify some of the information.
Sure, without objection. Mike, welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Last month I was here and I told you our sales tax was up a little bit and most of the rest of the state was down. Well, guess what? It flipped. Most of the rest of the state is up and we're down this time. The explanations I've always been given for these are meaningless from the state, basically. They talk about, they do a reassessment, and the projections that they're making for the last payment in March are way down for us. I don't want anybody to panic. I don't think it's a big deal at this point. I think we're going to be fine. Our budget officer was very conservative in the projection for what we were going to be collecting for 2019, and I think I'm pretty sure that we will make that without a problem. Unfortunately, like I said, the state doesn't give us much information about why they do this. They just say, well, we did a reassessment and we looked at a few things and your projection is going to be low this time. You never know.
Any questions for the treasurer? Matt?
Yeah, just for clarification, so we're down 2% from the almost 6% from last year. So we're still up 4% from last year's receipts.
From 18, or from 17, we're up that much. Okay, because Frank, and correct me if I'm wrong, the projections are based on actual collections from the previous year, correct? From 17. So you kind of have to go back to 17 to look at where we are now in comparison, because at the time the budget is being done, we don't have the 18 figures. So, but we do compare them back. I mean, yeah, we're down in the for the last payment in March of $445,000. I don't think that's going to be the case once we finally get the money, because we have not received all of the payments for the March.
Ryan, you got a question?
I do, and I'm not sure if the state has answered this question yet, but for the AIM payment, which will come out of our local sales tax revenue, it's going to be about $245,000. Did they indicate when they're going to withhold that from the revenue?
We have not heard.
Okay.
No. And that's another thing that concerns me, because they're talking about we're going to see this big boost in our sales tax from internet sales. I'm a little skeptical about that, because I do buy a lot of things on the internet, and most of the companies that I buy from are already collecting the sales tax, and we're already getting our percentage of that. So that's concerning to me, that they're stating that this $200 and some thousand that they're going to take from us, we're going to make up somehow. I'm concerned about that.
There was a discussion at NISAC yesterday regarding that, and basically NISAC was saying that there really is no information on exactly how they're calculating that.
Yeah, there isn't. It's just that, you know, I can't remember the projection, but it was in the millions, and I don't, in additional to what we're already getting, and I don't see it, but I'm just a lowly treasurer here. I'm not on the state level, so.
Well, Mike, thank you for being here.
Yep. Any other questions? Well, the other two things I'd like to say is that we do have two resolutions, 171 and 172, and I'd appreciate your support on those. And if there's any questions on either one of them, I'll answer for them right now.
Any questions for the treasurer?
Thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my report.
Very good. Supervisor Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No report, as the Budget Committee hasn't met. However, we will be probably in May, as soon as the books are closed, so we know what our fund balance is, and we have something to discuss. ANCA and Lakes to Locks is being contacted to attend those meetings to discuss their appropriation that they get out of the budget. I would encourage support on Resolution 177. If you recall, during the budget process, I took some money out of various departments and thought that we could pay cash, and that's what this resolution pertains to. That's my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Hyde?
No report.
Supervisor Garrity?
Yep, we have two resolutions from personnel, 166, 167. 167 is allowing a public health nurse to continue her education. I attended APA Local Government Day in Lake Placid, and again, we talked about the same issue. Short-term rentals was a big issue up there this year, broadband initiative. Did go to the Crime Victims Breakfast, that's always very moving. Intercounty Legislative Committee we had two meetings, one in March where we went to Denimore Correctional Facility. I found that to be very, we spent about an hour and a half in there touring the correctional facility. The warden was very forthcoming about the escape up there. We were able to see a lot of the area where the escape happened. It's a big facility. And then yesterday we went to Cool and Shearing Arena. And then yesterday after that, I went to an AATV meeting. meeting, and I'd just like to thank Don Lehman. I spoke to Don about the land bank being delayed, and he was able to get an article in the paper. I don't think a lot of folks understand that the land bank affects us up here because we were trying to put a bridge in to the Middleton Bridge, went from the town of Chester to the town of Hork, and the land bank's been held up by, I believe, Assemblyman Engelbright, so I sent him an email asking him, when we could see this move along. I've never had a response back, but I think was a little disingenuous from the Assemblyman. He's a chairman of the Environmental Committee. But as people are stating, and as Doug has stated, we are really getting shortchanged up here in this area in the Adirondacks, and I think Doug was spot on in his comments, and I appreciate him taking the time to do that. There's a lot of good things that happen up here. I'm not leaving either. I've been here all my life, but I'm not moving out of New York State. But this year was a tough year for upstate as far as the state budget goes. It's a tough year for the Adirondackers. Anybody who's in the blue line, we continue to struggle. And you get a lot of verbiage, but we're not seeing a lot of help up here. And that's why I went to Don and asked him, could you at least shine a little light on it? And I did what I said I was going to do. I sent a letter or an email out, and I've not heard from somebody like Engelbright. It may help that the rest of you send an email to him and saying, what's up with the land bank? This was voted on by the people of the state of New York 2 successive years. And it sits there in the Environmental Committee, and it doesn't go out to the legislator to pass an act. I don't get it. I can't see how you can ignore the voters of the state of New York. But apparently we can in Albany. And last but not least, I want to thank Supervisor McDevitt. He's going to represent Warren County at the ACC, or SUNY Adirondack graduation again. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate if some of you would kind of get on the bandwagon about the land bank and just send a note to them and saying you'd like an answer too. Why? Because it does affect us, and it affects a resort in the town of Horgan, which has been there forever, and attracts a lot of people to the community, and they have to take quite a shortcut around to get to their facility. So it's just not right. That's the way I feel about it.
I certainly agree with you. A major employer as well.
Yeah.
Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Criminal Justice Public Safety met on March 18th. Before you are 3 resolutions, one from the district attorney, one from the public defender, and one from the sheriff. All very simple. One is an agreement with special prosecutor for the DA's office, so whenever they have a conflict of interest, there's money in the budget to fund this as well. Public defender is an extension of an agreement, and sheriff is ratifying out-of-state travel. I did attend with other supervisors and the chairman the Crime Victims' Rights Breakfast. Would like to thank the DA's office and Magneto for putting that on, organizing that on April 8th. Also attended the Adirondack Local Government Day up in Lake Placid with a few other supervisors as well. Always good to be there and get up to speed on events that like this fall. Went to a broadband symposium that was after our last meeting in Johnsburg, hosted by our supervisor from Johnsburg at Henry Pond, and that was good to get updated on the progress of broadband in our area. We held an EMS task force meeting on April 16th. Thank you for all who attended and participated on that. We are making some progress, reported on in the RIC. Thank you for that. And would like to also thank the supervisors that came up to Chester and attended the first Wilderness Trail presentation. Chairman, Supervisor Wiles, Hogan, Supervisor Marino. This trail has great potential for our county, stretching from Corinth all the way up to Newcomb and following the Hudson River. So there'll be more about that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Report of the county administrator.
We had 2 individuals this month who celebrated significant employment milestones, and I'm privileged to recognize them now. Sandy Smith from the county clerk's office has 30 years, and Carol Hargraves of Social Services has 20. So congratulations to both of you. Many thanks for your hard work and dedication. I was on vacation for the March board meeting. It's been busy since February, so I'm going to focus just on the highlights since the February meeting. On Thursday, February 28th, I toured the Cool Insuring Arena with Jeff Mead and Mike Biddle of the ARCC to get a better sense of where they're headed and what their capital needs are going to be in the future. I was impressed with all that they've done to improve the facility, and I'm proud of the role that this county is playing to ensure that this venue stays strong. It's an important part of this county. I held several meetings in early March to launch the countywide capital project inventory, which all the towns and other stakeholders, including the Cool Insuring Arena, among others, have been asked to participate in. I want to thank the planning department for their help in getting this off the ground. We're getting a good response so far from all the stakeholders. We encourage all the towns to keep providing your information. And when we're done, I think that this inventory is going to be a great planning tool for the county going forward. Another stakeholder in that infrastructure effort is Countryside Adult Home, and I attended a kickoff meeting on March 28th on the building study authorized by this board to identify their capital priorities. April highlights so far include holding multiple meetings on the potential EMS consolidation and also with the various departments that provide services to at-risk children in this county. There have been federal and state policy changes pertaining to this group, this population, and I want to ensure that our departments stay ahead of the curve and make sure that we're coordinating efforts and doing the best we can. On Thursday the 11th, I had a very good meeting with Supervisor Bramer and staff from several departments to discuss a variety of environmental initiatives, and these will be discussed further at the Environmental Concerns Committee meeting on Monday, which I look forward to. Finally, April 1st, as we've discussed already, marked the passage of the state fiscal year 2020 state budget. I've reviewed all the budget legislation and reported back to the board already on several of the big-ticket items, but I did want to give you a very brief synopsis of what else is in this budget. I've alerted the appropriate county staff on the issues that need an impact analysis or an implementation plan, and we'll be working on that in the coming months. And in the meantime, if any of you would like additional details on anything that I'm about to mention, I'll go through it quickly. Just let me know after the meeting. In terms of the appropriation bills, State Office for the Aging, they increased the statewide ISEP appropriation, that's enhanced in-home services for the elderly, from about $50 million last year to $65 million this year, a significant increase. Most of the other programs are level funded, so I'm hopeful that we'll be able to implement some enhanced services with our share of the increase. DCJS, for another year, they kept the DA salary reimbursement flat. As you know, we have no choice as to what we pay the DA. No county does. Those salaries are tied to judges. The state initially was paying for that state-mandated increase. They've essentially frozen their contribution to that, so every year now when that amount goes up, it goes on the county. DEC, there's a new $500 million for water quality projects, and that's in addition to $2.5 billion that was put in the state budget a couple of years ago. Funds that are part of that $2.5 billion have been earmarked, including additional funds for water quality improvements. And I was very happy to see Senator Schumer jump on that and say that he's going to advocate for Lake George getting some of this water quality money. I think it's very important. It'd be great to see that happen. Board of Elections, there's $10 million in this budget to help counties implement early voting. There's $14.7 million to help us get electronic poll books if that's the will of each county legislature. It's not a mandate. It may make it easier for us to prevent fraud. It's unclear right now as to how those monies are going to be distributed, but we'll keep an eye on that. OCFS, the Summer Youth Employment Program, which is run by our Employment and Training Office, Chris Hunsinger, increased to $44 million from $40 million. The Office of Indigent Legal Services, the distribution funding is level funded, and the Harrell Herring statewide implementation, which will be coming to the Criminal Justice Committee next week. The funding has doubled. They're going to phase that funding in. It was $50 million last year, $100 million for the new year. That'll help us achieve some state-mandated reforms in indigent defense. Labor, the WIA, Workforce Investment Act, local programs for adults, youth, dislocated workers. They've increased funding for that from $130 million to $160 million. Mental health, the Joseph P. Dwyer peer-to-peer program, which again will be on committee agendas this coming month. Initially, all the funding was wiped out for that. The funding has been restored. We already got $185,000. We're slated to get an additional $185,000 to help run that program into the future. Raise the age, the state aid for implementation last year was $100 million. On top of that, another $200 million. That is still very much in flux. We were one of the first counties to submit a plan, and we've had the plan batted back and forth a whole bunch of times, and the state still hasn't finalized anything. On to where the magic happens, which is the language bills. That's where all the policy changes happen. Public Protection General Government Bill, binding arbitration continues until 2024 for our public safety unions. Elections, electronic poll books were authorized. Again, they're not mandated, but to the extent that they help us prevent fraud, it's something we should consider. Primary hours were changed from 9 to 9 to 6 a.m. to 9, so we'll have additional costs there. And FOIL reform, they initially had the state legislature subject to FOIL. Unsurprisingly, that came out of the state budget. Education, labor, family assistance. The main thing to report on this is PINS, persons in need of supervision, probation, county attorney, DSS, all touch this group. Initially, there was a lot of state reimbursement that was supposed to be eliminated for PINS placements. A lot of that was restored. So there's restored funding for PINS preventive services, and I can get into additional details with anybody who'd like to know. Almost done. The Affordable Care Act, portions of it that could be codified in state law were codified. They include guaranteed ability for small group coverage, protection over pre-existing conditions, no preventive care, cost sharing, and access provisions. The New York State of Health Marketplace, that's the exchange in New York State, that was codified in state law, so that's staying. Infertility services and 3 cycles of in vitro fertilization are now mandated for many health plans in this state. As a self-insured health insurance program, we are not on the mandate. It is an option for us to consider if we want to offer those services. We're working on an estimate from our health insurance consultants to give you an idea what that would be. Obviously, that is very helpful for those that need it because it's very expensive. But again, that'll be a cost that would fall on us. Regulation will be forthcoming on what types of coinsurances and copays can be required for those services. We'll keep an eye on all of this stuff. Lead screening, as you know, the Public Health Department oversees lead poisoning programs. They have they've cut the standard in half for the elevated lead levels. What that means is that we have potentially a lot more work to do, a lot more follow-ups to do if lead levels are within the new standard. We're going to keep doing an analysis. The data that we have right now between 5 and 10, which is the population that will be effective, it's never been tracked before. So Janelle is trying to get to the bottom of that, see what data the state has and how many cases that might mean for us. Last year, I think we had a follow-up on only 2 cases. It could be closer to 100, but again, we're doing a study on that. The nursing home study, which Supervisor Loeb mentioned, is in the budget. The Department of Health has until the end of this year to evaluate whether nursing homes can do a better job with additional staff, et cetera. I'd like to think it's not a coincidence that that got added to the state budget after this board asked for DOH to do a better job in this area. Office for the Aging now has the ability to offer private pay programs to clients that are over 400% of the poverty level. Details, again, will be subject to regulation. We'll look at that, see if it's worthwhile for this county to participate. It would be something that we would opt into. We don't have to do it. The Transportation Economic Development Bill, there was an expansion of the bottle bill that got taken out. We do have separate standalone legislation that's being added for the Environmental Services Committee to see whether or not we want to endorse that effort. Plastic bags, as you know, the state passed its own plastic bag ban. As part of that ban, they took sole ownership of the issue, so they prevent localities from passing any bans that don't already exist. And there is an option for counties to charge a 5-cent per paper bag fee. That will be something I believe that's on the environmental agenda for us to consider. And finally is the revenue bill, which is also known as the Big Ugly because it's the last bill to pass, and everything that gets worked out at the very end gets jammed into the end of it, where hopefully nobody will see it. But I looked at it. The criminal justice reforms are all in the revenue bill. Supervisor Beatty already mentioned some of those. They took out marijuana legalization. That'll be considered as separate legislation later on this year. The tax cap was made permanent. It had previously been extended for a year, for 2 years. It's now permanent. There's no sunset on that. Sales tax, we've discussed already the marketplace addition as well as the shift of AIM funds to county sales tax. Significant because Article 28 of the tax law is state revenue. Article 29 is local revenue. This is the first time that they're reaching into that Article 29 revenue to fund state priorities. It's unprecedented, and in my mind, it's a slippery slope. Finally, towards the end of the revenue bill, is unilateral mid-year budget reductions authorized for the state division of the budget, which reports to the governor. So what that means is if the federal government were to repeal the Affordable Care Act, result in a reduction of $850 million to this state, the state director of the budget can go in and cut aid to localities in the amount that's required to recoup that. It's a way of putting pressure on localities to lobby against health care reform at the federal level. They also have a provision for $850 million that's not Medicaid. If any action from the federal government in their estimation will cut $850 million from the state budget, they can make it up by taking it from us. And $500 million if the state division of the budget determines that this is independent of what the federal government does, but if anything during the course of the year sets off the state financial forecast by $500 million, the state can then come in and do the same thing. They can take it out of us or out of other programs that benefit our residents. This, I have to mention, is carried forward. These provisions have been in effect for the past 2 years. They have not yet been utilized, but it is there in the event that something develops at the federal level that Washington hasn't been able to do yet. There's a provision for the legislature to offer up a different program than whatever the state budget director offers, but whether or not they would do that, because whatever it's going to be is going to be very unpopular. It would be my suspicion that they'd rather have that fall on the governor. So that's something that I always worry about. Could happen at any moment. The state could change its forecast to justify that. So we'll keep an eye on it.
Supervisor Garrity.
Where would they take it from, our sales tax revenue?
No, they would reduce state aid into, so in the appropriation bills, the aid to localities bill is the one that gives most of our programs their aid. That bill is specifically mentioned. They can also take it out of state operations that fund the state agencies. I don't think that we would come away unscathed if this was activated.
Thank you. Report of the county attorney.
No report.
No report. Reading of communications.
We've received reports from the Adirondack Regional Chamber of Commerce, their annual report for 2018, Real Property Tax Services Department reporting of corrections to tax roll as approved by the county auditor, which was authorized by Resolution 42 of 2019, Warren County Jury Board annual report for 2018, Warren County Probation Department report of criminal and family workload for February 2019. We have minutes from Warren, Washington County CDC and IDA's meetings held on February 25th, March 6th, March 18th. Letter from Trout Unlimited and appreciation for assistance provided by the Warren County Fish Hatchery, and in particular hatchery manager Jeff Ingley for assistance with numerous trout in the classroom programs held in the fall of 2018. Notice of public hearing from Fitzgerald Morris Baker Firth regarding the KDBF Ventures LLC project. That public hearing was held on April 11th. We have a check in the amount of $3,151 from the Capital District Regional Off-Track Betting Corp. and a notification of a planned drawdown for the New York Feeder Dam Hydroelectric Project from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission.
Reading of resolutions.
Proposed resolutions 141 through 179 were distributed to the members of the Board of Supervisors and posted to the Warren County website on April 11th. There are no additional resolutions to be brought to the floor this month.
Is there anyone in the public that would like to address the board regarding any resolutions presently before the Warren County Board of Supervisors? There being no one, Chair will entertain a request for roll call. There being no request for roll call, Chair will entertain discussion on proposed resolutions. Supervisor Bramer.
On Resolution 148, it talks about the administration of projects and activities identified in the 2018 Local Waterfront Revitalization Plan Award. What are those?
That would be Supervisor McDevitt's committee. I believe Supervisor Simpson, isn't that one of the projects at least?
Speak to the project in Horicon. It was the inclusion. It was a program to increase our stewards and decontamination efforts on Scroon Lake for boat stewards. So it's the town of Scroon, town of Chester, town of Horicon. That's one piece of it. These were approved last year in our plan going forward. From the planning department. I just don't know. I think Chester, I'm not sure what.
It's part of the...
Is that same?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's all harvesting.
Okay, so that's the same.
Yep.
I've got some more detail if you need that, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Beatty.
That's a dollar-for-dollar match, 25%. The match will be provided by Horicon, Chester, and Scroon through expenses for the AIS prevention and control. Additionally, a volunteer working group will provide the match. That's from Mr. Hajos.
Yeah, that program, LWRP, that's 7525.
Right.
Any other questions, Supervisor Bramer? You had a tabling. We should take care of that tabling.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to table 150 and also, with Supervisor Sokol's permission, 179, which came out of finance for the money. To table those two resolutions, please. $179.
Can we take care of these together? Okay. So, Ms. Bramer, Supervisor Bramer has recommended the tabling of 150 and 179. Is there a second to that motion, Supervisor Dickinson? Further discussion on the tabling? There being none. All those in favor of tabling signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Did you have more?
Yes, thank you. On 168, where we are setting the capital reserve fund for the Board of Elections, is that name supposed to be typed? Is that an acronym? Does anyone know?
I can't remember.
Where it's typed in quotations there.
I don't think it was an acronym for anything.
I think it's probably a reference to the law, right, Mike?
Yes. What type?
TYPE.
My guess is that it parallels something that's written in state law about how you can do capital set-asides.
Great, thank you.
Very good. Any further discussion on 168? Discussion on other resolutions, Ms. Bramer?
Okay, 177, this was I just want to be clear that we're taking the 100 million, approximately 100 million, 1 million from the general fund.
Correct.
Which was that cash that you were mentioning earlier.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions regarding resolutions? There being none, then I will close discussion on resolutions, and we will vote on resolutions.
Resolution 141, making supplemental appropriations. Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 142, amending Warren County budget. Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 166, amending table of organization. Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 168, establishing capital reserve. Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 169, authorizing appropriation of funds from Westmount Legacy Reserve. Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 173, increasing capital project H375, 13th Lake Road culvert replacement. Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 174, establishing capital project H384, County Route 11 over Pinkle Brook culvert replacement. Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett? Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 175, establishing capital project H385, County Route 32 over Benny Brook culvert replacement. Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Sokol? Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett? Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 176, establishing 2019 road fund project. Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 177, authorizing appropriation of funds from the general fund. Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 178, establishing capital project H383, Screw Lake invasive species. Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Lots of other-
Motion on the collective, Supervisor Sokol, second Supervisor Dickinson.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Now extend privilege of the floor to anyone in the audience wishing to address the board regarding any subject. There being no one, announcements? Supervisor Bramer.
I have two announcements Supervisor Shaw already mentioned, but I did want to bring it up at this time. Tomorrow we're having an Earth Day celebration, the city and Queensbury jointly. It's tomorrow, noon to 4, in City Park, so next to the Crandall Library, noon to 4, and it'll be there rain or shine. Lots of activities. Hopefully it's not pouring rain. But come out and see what's going on, check out the city. It's a very happening place these days.
Sure is.
And the second thing is we have a proclamation for Law Day, which happens every year in May. And the Warren County Bar Association always does a Law Day breakfast. You are all welcome to come. If you want the invitation, just let me know. It's Friday, May 3rd. And every year we honor someone in the community with the Liberty Bell Award from Warren County. So this year's theme is the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and the press. And our award is going to Mark Frost.
Very good. And I've asked Supervisor Bramer to represent us for that presentation at the breakfast. And so I certainly would encourage anyone available to attend. Anyone else? Supervisor Silk?
Yes, I would just like to extend a very, very happy Easter to everyone and your families. Enjoy.
Thank you. Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Warren County Health Services is hosting a blood drive this coming Friday, April 26th from 9 to 2. If you have any questions, you can get in touch with Warren County Health Services to do a slot. I'm nearing my 100th give, so I will be there and hope to see others there also. The local chapter of the NAACP is hosting a College Assistance Awards Gala. That's is coming a week from Saturday, the 27th, at the Highland Park Country Club. And before we meet again as a board, May 12th is a day dear to us all. I'm sure that's Mother's Day, and I want to extend a happy Mother's Day to all families. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Simpson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to announce it's a month earlier than I probably should announce, but we're going to have this event all summer long in Oregon on Fridays. It's called Food Truck Fridays, and it's going to be a variety of these, self-enclosed food truck people that are going to come. We're going to have probably lobster rolls and some other things, but we're also going to have live music, and so please come up Friday afternoons in the month of June. I'll get the details of when we're going to actually start, but it should be interesting, and it should be a good time, and hopefully people will come up.
Sounds great. Location?
Happy Easter. It's going to be at the Town Hall.
Town Hall.
Right on the Mill Pond.
Mm-hmm. On the Mill Pond.
So,
Good.
happy Easter to everyone.
Supervisor Lowe?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to once again take this opportunity to remind everybody throughout Warren County about the Red Cross program to install free smoke alarms. Any day of the week, any day of the year, not just in Glens Falls, but if you have friends in Albuquerque, New Mexico, it's a nationwide initiative. May 4th, as I've said before, is a day that this region has chosen, the Glens Falls area, to install 1,000 alarms. That's about 300 or 400 homes, if you say 3 or 4 alarms per home. So far, only, I think, less than 100 homes have applied. We will come any day of the week to any place in Warren, Washington, northern Saratoga County. On that particular day, the Glens Falls area, if we have a concentration of folks, such as in Johnsburg, we'll send a team out there. But I encourage you all, this is the one opportunity you have to your constituents to say, hey, here's a way we can give you money. The Red Cross is very happy to do it. This is all donor money. Most of the donor money that's received goes to places like North Carolina or Florida for the hurricane, or Texas, or the fires in California. This is one way we can give a substantial amount of money back to the residents and citizens of our county. So I encourage you to communicate with your constituents and take advantage of this. Absolutely free. We're going to come to your house if the fire chief thinks we need to, one way or the other. We'd rather come before the suffering and probably a good chance at saving someone's life. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Molina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got a couple of comments I'd like to make. I want to thank the administrator and Doug Beatty for that great report today. To sit back here and listen to that stuff, it doesn't sound really good for all of us in this state and especially this county. The second thing, I want to commend the chairman on implementation of the EMS meetings that we've been having. It's a big problem, and it's a costly problem, and I think it's going to be a worthwhile adventure to get into. Also on the shared services, it's a great program. And not last, but that part where towns could give the county planning some of our projects to help the towns get through some of these projects. The only thing, I haven't heard anything about sales tax meetings, and it's middle of April already, so I'm just bringing it up again. And I got one comment on Mr. Wiles' report that I think you all should know. And I spoke to Mr. Wiles, he knows what I'm going to say. This report would come from the STAR report, okay? And I just think it's not accurate. There's only 29 properties in the Warren County that are on the STAR report, and they represent 2,776 rooms. The county has approximately 9,867 rooms, so it's only about a third of the room rate amount that we. This whole thing is good except for the last column on that demand. Shows the demand low. I object that that people should know it's not all the hotels, motels, and bed and breakfasts that are reporting how many rooms we all have. And so I think it should be. I'd like to see you go knock on every hotel, motel, and bed and breakfast in the county, and then come back with what I'll feel is an accurate report. And we don't consider resorts, we don't consider campgrounds, and we don't consider Airbnbs. So, to me, it's tough to read this and say it doesn't look like our occupancy has been going up over the years, but there's a lot left out. So that's all. Thank you for your time.
Supervisor Weil.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for an opportunity to respond. And I'm not going to get into details. I don't think that's appropriate. I know that there's things that I may have missed, and that was my intent of making sure that I got it to the whole board, because I think occupancy tax is a real important asset for this county to make a difference. And I'm just looking for ways to measure how we're doing. So I'm not sure if you would like to schedule a meeting so we could discuss this in detail, Mr. Chairman, but that's something that I'd like to see happen. I did reach out to Supervisor Dickinson
with
the
that,
OPEX community.
That would be the avenue.
But his budget or his agenda is totally full this month, so maybe we'll move it off to next month if it doesn't fit in.
Good.
Very
good. Very good. Motion to adjourn. Supervisor Simpson, Supervisor Dickinson on the second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Good.